What's up? It's Lerald. So the PoE economy has been absolutely crazy over the past several days. The price of divine orbs is crashing. It's gone down to 125 chaos per divine as of the last time I checked, and that means strategies that farm other currency, things like chaos orbs and exarch currency, are considerably more effective than they were even just like 2 weeks ago when divine orbs were in the 200 range. I was thinking about that and thinking about how much I like Breach and how I haven't actually touched it yet at all this league, even though GGG added a huge quality of life improvement in 326 from PoE 2, with all of the splinters dropping in a single pile once the Breach completes. I specifically asked for that feature, and then we got it, and I haven't bothered to use it. It just seemed unappreciative. Am I a bad person? So all this was rumbling around in my head, and I decided to just run some breaches and see how it went. I also wanted to hit level 100 on my champion already, and now I have. I had a pretty good time doing it. Breach is generally regarded as the go-to strategy for hitting level 100 quickly and easily, and I don't know if it's the fastest. Certainly the way I set it up isn't the absolute fastest, but it was real easy. I had one death because I didn't realize that it was a reflect map, didn't have a reflect damage reduction flask on, and other than that, I never got close to death. I had a great, very easy time. Now, I did all this strategy in 8 mod tier 16 maps very cheaply, right? I ran quite a lot of breach setups while I was figuring out the exact setup I wanted to run, which is what this video ultimately is about. I feel like I had several really nice jackpots on Grand Exalted Embers right before I actually started putting things into the dump tab. I know I had one map that I had over 40. That's like 3 divines. And yeah, that one didn't get counted. I also forgot to start picking up breach rings until I had like 7 maps left in the test. So that's probably 2 or 3 more grasping mails I could have pulled as well. Maybe one would have hit a jackpot and then we'd be talking about like 75, 80 more divines made out of this test. So the point here is, I think this will be a little bit of an underestimate of what it's capable of as a strategy, but for a cheapo strategy that anyone can do on pretty much any character, I think it's really, really good. Alright, let's get into it, but first be sure to subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. Also, join our Discord, there is a link in the description, and as a note on YouTube comments, we're still a 2-person channel. I'm talking right now, but Sunset is usually the one in the comments section. We really make an effort to answer all YouTube comments and questions, so ask away. If you have follow-up questions after we've given our initial response, though, those are usually pretty hard to see in YouTube's comment management system, so you're better off joining the Discord and just talking at us there. Alright, about the strat. We are running Breach at low cost and hunting Chayula Breach stones. It's really that simple. We're not doing anything with Resonant Cascade Scarabs. Those work. That's a really great strategy for trying to take advantage of the more currency multiplier in tier 16.5 maps. But we're not doing that. We're keeping it super cheap. We're just running regular tier 16s. The corrupted 8 mod maps with delirium layers on them because I still have a bunch of those left over from strategy from last week. So that's great if you've got them, but ultimately we're really just looking for Chayula Breach stones. We have a lot of pack size and quant on our maps, so we're going to get a lot of Chayula or, you know, any Breach Lord splinters from every single breach in the map, but that's really it, right? We're just trying to, when we get a Chayula Breach, kill everything in the Chayula Breach, get 50, 60 Chayula Breach stone splinters, if not just a full Breach stone out of the deal, and there you go. Chayula Breach stones are worth a divine each right now. I've sold a bunch of them for a divine each, so I know that they sell for that, and they sell pretty much instantly on the trade tool with old Faustus, so pretty easy, right? As for how we actually do this in terms of in the maps, I boss rush, then I just start breaching. I don't do any sort of full clearing first. Again, this isn't a Resonant Cascade strategy. Maybe I'll make another video about that at some point, but this is the real easy version of it. You kill the boss, then you start clearing the map. Pretty easy. If you want to take currency options, like monster options from the Exarch altars, I recommend it. I think they're pretty good. Some of the player mods, currency duplication and quantity are not bad, but getting Chaos Orbs, getting Gem Cutter's Prisms, getting Grand Exarch Embers, all fantastic. All right, let's go ahead and jump into the tree here. So this is the setup that I'm going with. I am taking these 3 points up the middle. You could take these 3 over to the side here. It doesn't really matter, you know, same distance either way. And we're trying to get mounting modifiers, you know, all of the map mod effect that we possibly can in the tree, of course. If you are rolling and chiseling your maps, you could take Chisel Perfection. If you're using maps that you have like self-farmed that are Corrupted 8 mod maps, which is what I'm doing, you can actually drop this point and just put it into more Scarab nodes. That's kind of where all of our dumps are like, you know, whatever final point dumps are going, is just into more Scarabs. I didn't actually get any jackpot Scarabs out of this strategy. I don't think. Yeah, I don't think I got like any Ultimatum Catalyst or whatever the fancy ambush scarab, like I didn't get any of those, and that's fine, right? I'm also doing red altars because they kind of fit better for my build, Chaos Inoculation build, and I don't know, juice and quantity and stuff isn't really that big of a deal with blue altars in this strategy. I just wanted as many Grand Exarch Embers as I could get, and that worked out pretty well. Exarch is like a nice change of pace. And then other than that, I'm pretty much taking every single one of the breach nodes within reason. I'm not taking anything other than Chayula in this branch over here. I did play around with Ulnatal a little bit before I like started recording and logging everything. And the issue with taking Ulnatal, you know, you have these two small 40% chance to belong to Ulnatal and then 50% here, is that Ulnatal just really isn't worth that much. I think the Ulnatal breach stones are like 25 chaos, and the Chayula ones are divine, so like 5 times as much. And if you increase the chance of Ulnatal, you do decrease the chance of Chayula. So basically all 3 of the elemental breach lords are just worth like nothing. Ulnatal's barely worth much. It's really better to just maximize Chayula, not worry about Ulnatal at all. As for everything else, you know, the thing with Breach is that just like in PoE 2, I mean, the same reason really that this is good as in PoE 1 is the same reason it's good in PoE 2. It spawns a hell of a lot of rare monsters. Evolving Hive spawns a ton of rare monsters. You do have a lot of like Breach spawn chance as well. You're able to get tons of breaches out of Eve of Invasion procs, and then just generally you're able to add a lot of breach spawn chance. I think the Scarab combination that I'm running along with the map device is adding like 5 guaranteed, or maybe 6 guaranteed with points in the tree. And then there's potential to get like, you know, an extra 1, 2, 3, 10, whatever. You're also getting a lot of Breach Lord spawns. We are using Breach Lord Scarabs, and so we're also getting a lot of hands in all of our breaches. And we're high-fiving all of those hands, and because of the Scarabs we're using, every time we high-five a hand, that spawns a rare monster as well. So it's like rare monster city inside of every breach. Really, really effective. There's a lot of potential to scale this with other league mechanics. I'm not taking advantage of that. I'm just like putting points into Scarabs and keeping it simple, but you can make this work very, very well with Beyond to be like an incredible monster printer. I just didn't want to do that. I've done enough Beyond and Evolution Scarab, Evolution Shrine Scarab stuff recently. I kind of wanted to break from that. Just some very simple breach monster killing, and it worked out pretty nicely. So I did kill a lot of Breach Lords, thanks to Within Their Grasp and the Scarab setup that we're using. I didn't actually get any of the Breach Lord blessings. These are not necessarily worth a ton. Like Blessing of Zoth is worth 190 chaos. Like they're worth over a divine. That would be nice to have gotten any of those. I didn't see any blessings drop. I'm now realizing I haven't checked to make sure, guarantee that they're shown in my filter, but I'm pretty sure. So yeah, I'll definitely be checking that after the video, but I didn't see any. I think they're just pretty rare. I just kind of got unlucky. That's okay. And then I am taking the point in Zesht. The chance to have Zesh show up, having more hands into breaches, just that can throw all the different types of breach stones, is not bad. It gives you more chances to spawn rares, more chances to, I don't know, spawn Zesh, maybe get some breach stones out of that. Not anything wrong with that. Other than that, I am putting some points into Singular Focus. I was just really trying to target farm more Dunes tier 16.5s. I only got 2. I think it kind of backfired on me. I think maybe don't bother with Singular Focus and just point like more points into Scarabs. That's fine. I know people will ask about Remarkable Relics. Sir Gog talked about this in a video from like a week ago. This node's actually really, really, really terrible. So yeah, don't bother with that. But other than that, like, it's really not a very complicated tree, right? We're taking the points for tier 16.5 maps. I was trying to get more with Singular Focus. It didn't really work out. Map mod effect for quantum rarity and pack size. All the normal breach nodes. That's pretty much it. The only thing that I would say you can kind of like have a bit of a choice here is you could take heavy breach if you're playing kind of a slower build, which I am. This is a strategy that benefits from being faster. If you're on a very fast build, Flash Breach will definitely be better, but you do have to be fast enough to take advantage of it. So Heavy Breach is kind of like the direction I went with, right? Other than that, pretty much a very standard setup. All right, now let's talk about the Scarabs, and I'll just mention the map device. You take Breach of the map, very basic, right? So what I am doing is I'm not using the Resonant Cascade Scarab, but I can show that off real quickly here. Resonant Cascade Scarab is this one. This one's a little bit more expensive than the rest. It's maybe like 12, 15 chaos each. And what it does is it makes all of the monsters be like harder, but more rewarding. And it also makes the breaches open and close faster for each breach you've already done. And that scales up with the number of breaches. So the way that you take advantage of this really is you just run 4 breach Scarabs with it. And then you take Breach in the map device and you just try to have like 10, like the double-digit number of breaches in every map. And then you combine that with like more currency modifiers on the map, and then the last several breaches will be a huge multiplier, but you have to have a very, very fast build in order for that to work. And it's a bit stressful at the end of the map, so, you know, that wasn't really what I was looking for. I was really looking for like very smooth, easy XP gain and kind of cheap and not requiring tier 16.5s in order to work, because I wanted to like just very safely and easily grind XP. And so I instead went with this setup of 1 breach Scarab, because that's all I could fit in on top of everything else. So I'm not trying to have as many breaches as possible in every map. I just want the breaches that are in the map to be very, very full of guys that are rewarding. So I'm using 2 breach Scarabs of splintering, and that's so we get double the amount of breach splinters from everything in the breaches. This is kind of worthless on all of the elemental breach options that we get, you know, Esh, Zoth, and Tool. Their breach stones are worth like nothing, like less than 10 chaos each. Kind of sucks. But when you get a Chayula breach, instead of getting like 10 or 12 breach stones out of the deal, by combining all of the rest of these splinters, we're going to be getting like upwards of 50 breach splinters pretty often out of each of those breaches. Then I'm also taking Breach Scarab of Lordship. This is really useful because you know, you have the within their grasp, you have the chance to get a breach stone. Doesn't happen that often, but it did actually happen quite a few times in this run where I got a full breach stone from a boss. I think I got one of every color of the rainbow, and then a whole bunch more out of Esh, unfortunately. I think I only got 1 Chayula breach stone for free, but still, like, that's a free to find, right? Like, that's not bad. And then the chance for them to be flawless is very small, but if that hits, that's several divines, so that's a pretty good jackpot. But there's more. You do get a bunch of breach stones or breach splinters out of the breach lords, and that's really good. I think the biggest thing is just simply that breach lords are not like exclusive. You can spawn several breach lords in a single breach. Like, I've spawned 3 Chayulas in 1 Chayula breach, and they have the chance to be duplicated, which is great. So this is just really good. I think it is better than having 2 more breaches. Like, I would rather have all the breaches be juiced pretty hard than have more breaches that all kind of stink. Power Struggle works really well for this front, like on this front as well. I think the Power Struggle bosses are capable of being duplicated as well. I think I high-fived a Chayula hand and got 2 Chayulas out of it a couple of times. I think that happened. It's kind of hard to tell whether you high-fived it and there also was one right next to it, or if that was actually 2, but either way, like, that's pretty cool. And this is all multiplied by the Breach Scarab of Snares, and so the way that this one works is it adds 3 to 5 hands into every single breach, and every single time you touch a hand, whether it's a regular hand or a boss-specific hand, it spawns a rare breach monster. So if there are 10 hands or more in every single breach, and you're also getting a guaranteed 3 extra rare monsters in every single breach, you're talking about a minimum of like 13 rares in every single breach. I think that's pretty amazing. You know, again, there's also the chance to spawn bosses out of those hands on top of the rare monsters. So this all works really well. And it's also super simple, right? You're just killing, and more stuff spawns and you kill that stuff too. All right, so that's really the setup. Like I said, it's super simple. Now I want to talk a bit about the results. So I made 32 divines. I did 22 maps. My plan initially was I felt like I had about 18 maps or so until I was going to hit max level, maybe 19. And then, like I said earlier, I immediately ran into a map and killed myself with Reflect because I was wearing the wrong flask. I thought I was wearing a Reflect Immunity flask and I wasn't. So that's set me back a couple of maps. So it took 22 to hit level 100. So I just, fine, like, all right, I'll roll with it. So 32 divines is what I ultimately wound up with. Wealthy Exile saying my dump tab is worth. This is the dump tab right here. It didn't add in the tier 16.5 map values, which that's 2 defiled cathedrals. That's like half a divine each, and then the 2 dunes maps are more like 0.7. So there's about 2.4 divines that it kind of shorted me on, which is okay. So like 30, we'll say like 34 and a half divines is the actual value of what's in the dump tab, 34.5. The cost of actually setting this up. So the first 5 maps I did just to kind of see were not these corrupted 8 mod delirious maps from that strategy that we talked about last week. They were actually just like regular corrupted 8 mod maps, just boring ones. I played around with like 5 of those before switching over to delirious. And the thing about breach monsters is because they're not native monsters, they actually do not benefit from deliriousness. Like, I don't think they get the quantum rarity modifier at all. They definitely don't get any delirious mods. So there's kind of no reason to run delirious. And that was my initial thinking, was like, well, delirium's kind of ugly. Like, I wouldn't mind not dealing with the ugliness. And you certainly could. But breach is really good at spawning lots of deli rewards, like really counting up the delirium reward counter, getting you up to like 11, 12, 13 rewards in every single map. So ultimately I just said, I still have all of these deli maps to run through, and I think I still have my, no, I guess I don't. All right, let me just grab my regex here. Like, every single one of these maps is runnable for me of the regular tier 16s, so I just went with that. I did find that I was getting a little bit more XP per map because, well, because there's a bunch of delirious monsters in there. So ultimately I did that. I felt good about that setup, but I think you could run this either way, right? You could run delirious, you could not run delirious. I don't really think it matters all that much. I didn't really get any jackpots out of delirium rewards either. Like, I didn't get any divines or anything fancy out of the delirium rewards at all. Just kind of some worthless synth bases and fractured bases and stuff that I wound up not even like putting in the stash tab. So with that being said, I think that the cost of running this strategy for 22 maps was about 4.5 divines. The combined cost of the Scarabs and the map device is less than 20 chaos. The maps themselves are like 10 to 15 chaos each. Ultimately, I mathed it out. I thought it was about 4.5 divines. So, I mean, that's like very nice and convenient, but it is true. I think that put us right around 30 divines of actual profit from 22 maps, which is pretty good, right? Like 1.36 divines profit per map very consistently. Like, all of this is just like fortress map, tier 16.5 drops, which I felt like I really low rolled, only getting 4 of those in 22 maps, especially with having singular focus equipped. Like, I thought I really got kind of screwed on that front. A couple of divines, like, I thought I did okay on those, not like amazing. So I think this is a bit of a low roll over the I think 1.5 divines per map's probably pretty achievable as well. So these maps took me about 5 minutes. My build's not particularly fast. I think you could do these in 4 minutes with a much more speedy build. I think in particular when you find that you have like a Zoth, Tull, or Esh breach, you can go ahead and like hit a nearby breach as well and just have some overlapping breaches and like still clear the breach out. You might as well. You'll still get some value out of killing the rare monsters, especially if you're still trying to farm XP. But, if it's a Chayula breach, I like to lock in and really like focus on full clearing everything in that breach, high-fiving every single hand and so on. But if it's not a Chayula breach, you can kind of move on to the next one and just like hit the overlapping spots until it collapses. I think that's fine. So with that being said, this with, I would say, about 5-minute maps, I think it's about 12 breaches an hour. It's like 16 divines an hour. I think that's pretty good for an XP-focused strategy that's like doing tier 16s. I think that's really solid. If you were doing these maps in 4 minutes a map and you were hitting like, so that'd be 15 maps an hour, I think you're looking at like 20 divines an hour. I think that is very, very good. Now, one thing I forgot to mention along the way is I do think having some kind of Explodey built in, like an Oriath's End or an Explodey chest or, I don't know, Occultist Profane Bloom, some kind of Explodey is really helpful for clearing these quickly. Big fan of any sort of Explodey. Definitely recommend that. Also, one thing that I completely forgot to do until the very end was, like I said earlier, like the last 7 maps or so, was picking up breach rings. So if you vendor 60 of these breach rings, you'll be able to sell them to a vendor, and you'll get back an unidentified grasping male. And so just to show off the wiki page on the grasping male, there are a bunch of modifiers that can exclusively show up on the grasping male. It's all of these. There are 27 of them. Most of them are kind of worthless. But there are 3 that really stand out as being pretty good. This one, armor's increased by overcap fire resistance, is like mandatory for armor stackers. It is worth, on a fractured base, it's worth a crazy amount, but on a non-fractured base, which is what this will be, it is worth, I have a trade link pulled up here, grasping male, armor's increased by overcap fire res, not corrupted. It is worth 80 divines. So this is an equal weight between all of these mods. So this is like 1 in 27. So I think just to math that out, 80 divided by 27, that means every time you hand in a set of 60 breach rings, your odds of making like whatever currency, you're basically averaging out like 3 divines every time you hand these in. Now you can sell breach rings. People will buy a full inventory, 60 of them at a time for 1 divine each. That feels like a big time undersell. Maybe that's like a money-making strategy right there. Either way, there's like a real high demand for these armors, increased by overcap fire resistance. Body armors, if you're really gutsy and you want to try and fracturing orb that, you can fracturing orb that and sell those for radically more. Let's see how much more that's gonna go for. My God, 300 divines. Now that's gonna take some courage to do that, but obviously really good if you could pull that off. Now, with that being said, there are a couple of other decent modifiers in here. Evasion's increased by overcapped cold res, not nearly as good, but like 5-6 divines, not bad. And the percent increased, 50% increased global resistance, or defenses rather, is 10-12 divines as well. So there are several different decent options. Most of them are really bad though, like 1 to 5 lightning damage for each shocked enemy you've killed recently, worthless. Most of these modifiers are going to be bad, but there are some that are really good. Obviously the armor's increased by overcap fire resistance is completely insane, especially if you're gutsy enough to fracture it. So with that being said, I think I could have put together probably like 3 or 4 grasping males in the span of 22 maps. Yeah, I put together 1 and what is this, like 1 1/3 in the span of 7 maps. So I think I was averaging, it's kind of spotty. Some of the maps I had like 5 or 6, some of them I'd have like 15. So little hit and miss, but there's definitely a lot of value to be had in the breach rings. All right, I guess I'll just finally conclude here by saying I do think you got to do this on Dunes. There are definitely other maps that can work fine, but Dunes is what I have. Dunes is what I like. I would strongly encourage you to run Dunes. There are just so many good reasons to do Dunes and not a lot of reasons to not do Dunes. So that's Breach. I was super happy with it as a strategy. I really just wanted a fast XP strategy that would generate a decent amount of currency. I got the XP. That could be better if I were to go with like Beyond and Domination, Scarab of Evolution, like all of that would definitely make it better, but it would come at the cost of some currency. I got quite a lot more currency through this strategy than I expected. If I was on a faster build and clearing like 15 maps an hour, I would definitely be looking at a 20 div per hour strategy and a lot more XP per hour. And if I'd remember to pick up breach rings from the start, I might have even hit on an armor increased by overcap fire resistance modifier, grasping male as well. You never know, right? All right, that's it. Be sure to like and subscribe if you enjoyed the video, and join the Skipping Sleep Studio Discord so you can say hello to me and Sunset if you haven't already. And finally, thank you to all of our channel members. If you want to support us so we can keep making more PoE content, become a channel member as well. Thanks for watching. Bye.